Hey, Jelly here with another nail polish video. Today I'm going over my brand Prickly Pear Polish's summer collection. These polishes are available now in my Etsy shop. The link will be in the description. Even if you choose not to buy it, I would appreciate it if you took the time to at least look at the polishes. I worked really hard on it and it would mean a lot to me. And today I'm using the Orly Bonder base coat underneath all my manicures, so let's go ahead and get started. First up, we have Cherry Cola, which is a warm burgundy base with an intense red shimmer, and it's reminiscent of the classic soda it's named after. As you can see on that first coat, Cherry Cola gives really nice coverage because reds, at least the two reds that I've created, tend to be a little bit more on the jelly curly side. I do recommend doing 2 or 3 coats. I personally would wear this one in 2 coats. I like how it looks. I do have a more predominant nail line, I feel like, so if I wasn't wanting to deal with seeing that little bit of nail line, I would add a blurring base coat, though doing that third coat can also help with that as well. What's nice about this formula as well is that as you add more coats, the color does deepen up. You'll see that when I do that second coat right now, that it ends up deepening the color just a little bit, and then it really deepens the color on that third coat. You can also see that with that second coat, it does a very good job of giving full opacity. In the video, you can make out maybe just a tiny bit of nail line or just that spot of the nail from the last polish I had on that I missed on my middle finger, but it's a lot less noticeable than it was when I had it in just the one coat. Again, this one applies super nicely. This one also isn't hard to remove at all if that's something that you need to know, since it doesn't have any glitters or flakes or anything in it. It just has some shimmer powder in it. As you can also see in that third coat what I was talking about, that it just deepens the color really nicely. You might see a little bit of brush strokiness as you are applying it, but they definitely disappear as it dries. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of Cherry Cola. Next up, we have Lemonade Crunchy Ice, which is a bright yellow crelly filled with snow white glitters. This polish can be fully opaque within 3 careful applications, but it still sits a little bit on the sheer side. So you can see on that first coat, it is definitely a little bit more on the jelly side of crelly, but it still does decent coverage on the first coat. I personally would strongly recommend wearing this one with a blurring base coat just to make sure that your visible nail line isn't very obvious and to make sure that everything sits evenly as well, since this polish will show any ridges that you might have in your nail especially. So the reason why you're not seeing a lot of glitters on this first coat is because I am swatching with my bottle, and my bottle, some of the glitters have settled and I did not hold it upside down before. When you have these glitter polishes, I do recommend putting the bottle upside down first, just to make sure you have the glitter squares come out. But when I did that with this, before I did the second coat, you can definitely see a little bit more of that glitter pay out. I want to make sure that with the formulas I have that use glitter in it, that they are capable of still being workable without feeling really thick. And so sometimes with heavier glitters, it's not as friendly with the formula I mix. I am going to play around to see if I can find a formula that allows those square glitters and those heavier glitters to still sit well without fully sinking. But as you can see on that third coat, I do have pretty nice opacity. There might be a little bit of patchiness, but as I said before, nothing that careful application can't fix. And then just so you can see the difference, I also did a white application. You'll see on my thumb that there is this big gray spot. That is not the fault of the polish itself. I have pretty ridgy thumbs, and I only did 1 coat of the white polish I used on top of a non-ridge filling base coat. So even with my best to fill in that base, that ridge still shows up. But you can definitely see that doing it over that white base does really bring out the covers and gives it I would say, other than, of course, that one ridge spot in my nail, perfect opacity in 2 coats over a layer of white. And there was 1, 2, and 3 coats of lemonade crunchy ice, plus 2 coats over a white base. Next, we have Last Light, which is a dark blue jelly base with an intense green to gold magnetic pigment. Unmagnetized, it leaves a glowy, murky appearance, or when you magnetize it, it can have the appearance of the last light before night on your nails. I really love this one. This one was one of the big first polishes that I came up with for this summer collection. I was going to call it the Deep End just because it reminds me of deep waters, but I decided not to go with that just because I wanted it to fit a little bit better. And the biggest deciding factor that told me to name it Last Light instead is I actually saw the sky pretty much looking like this where I live, so I had to go for it. With how I decided to magnetize for these polishes, I decided to do it how I think most of you will end up magnetizing it, where you build up your layers to opacity and then you do the final layer on top magnetize. I personally prefer to do each layer magnetize. I find for me that gives it a better result. Another thing that you want to do with magnetic polishes is when you do that magnetization layer, if you're doing it on the top, make sure it's a little bit thicker than you want to do it. If you have a little bit of running or pulling, I personally don't mind it that way if it means getting the best magnetic appearance. But you can see that it builds up really nicely even in those second coats. It has nice opacity. I personally recommend wearing this one in 3 coats. Just gives the best payout for that dark blue and can really make sure that you have full coverage on everything. But you can definitely see, even with that 2 coats the way it is, that's pretty nice coverage. Again, this is more of a jelly formula, so it is going to get a little bit deeper with each layers that you do, and you can definitely see just how beautiful that change of light is. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of Last Light. Next up, we have S'mores, which is inspired by the classic summer camping treat. It's a white crelly with holographic copper glitters and matte back shreds. This is my first attempt at a white crelly, and I am really happy with it. It's definitely perfectly opaque in 3 coats, which is what I also recommend to get the most depth and payout for the glitters and shreds. This one will be fairly difficult to remove as well, by the way, because it is packed with those shreds and glitters. I know on that middle finger that it looks pretty barren, but trust me, it is not usually like that. That was just a really light coat. On that first coat, if you do it a little bit thicker like I accidentally did on my index finger, you can definitely see that it could give a nice sheer look. But when you build it up to the 3 coats like I recommend, you'll see on my ring finger, it is definitely the best look for it as well. One thing that I really loved about this polish is that I personally find it really looks like s'mores. I didn't want to do it how I like to eat my s'mores, which is completely burn the marshmallow. I wanted to be more reminiscent of a lightly toasted marshmallow that has the perfectly brown and black spots around it that I know a lot of people prefer for their s'mores as well, and I am so happy with how this one came out. This one is definitely the one I'm most proud of the collection. I might play around with my white crelly formula to see if I can get a little bit more opaque for those for a 2 coat coverage, but I'm happy with this first one as well. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of s'mores. Then the last polish in the collection that's meant to be worn as a manicure is Monsoon Skies. Monsoon Skies has a gray base with a blue shimmer running throughout. It's inspired by monsoon season that Arizona has every year. I personally find this one has perfect coverage in 2 to 3 coats. because I packed it with that blue shimmer just trying to get it to stand out. I'm not sure what it is, but I have just been having a hard time making sure blue shimmer stands out no matter what color it is. It is a little bit of a thirsty polish, so I do recommend doing a little bit thicker coats for this one just to make sure that everything goes on evenly and smoothly. As you can see, beautiful coverage in that first coat. I really like it. You could, if you just wanted to do something a little bit lighter and you are really careful with application, you could easily just do it as a one coat just to have that nice sheer look. On that second coat, it definitely deepens the color and evens everything out. Just because of the nature of this polish, if you are not careful with application, you might end up having a dark spot near the base of your cuticles, so that is something to keep in mind when you're doing application to be careful of. But if you wanted to get a little bit deeper color payout, or you want to make sure that everything is fully opaque, if you're not happy with two coats, that third coat will go and help cover everything up, deepen that color a little bit, and make it shine a little bit more. I still personally find 2 or 3 coats is perfect coverage for this polish. I usually prefer to wear it in 2, but if I'm not very careful, I do go in for that third coat. And there is 1, 2, and 3 coats of Monsoon Skies. And finally, we have the topper for the collection, which is called Snow Cone. It's packed with Snow White flakes and Rainbow Pearl tiny flakes. My idea for this is that you put it over any color and it turns your manicure into your favorite summer treat with this topper. So just to keep it consistent with the rest, I decided to do it just over my nail and the base coat, so you can see. As you can see on that first coat with just how sparkly my fingers are as I move it around, that they are fairly packed with those toppers. I really loved how this came out. And then you'll see that the more you add, the more sparkly your nail is. Because the base does dry down clear and they are pretty not opaque, I can't think of the word on the top of my head, a little bit translucent in their nature for those flakes, you will not ever get full opacity, but it does add a beautiful sparkle if you are looking for a your nails but better look with this as well. On that second coat, you can definitely see the shimmer does get way more intense, and then on that third coat, you'll see it has the most intensity as well. I know I already said that, but I'm really proud of this topper. I originally wanted to have it like a really sheer milky white jelly base, but I felt that just wasn't working, and by taking out the white base from this mix, it ended up being exactly what I wanted it to do, especially with how many flakes are in this polish as well. And just so you could see a little bit of a difference between just the bare nail, I also did it over 1 coat of cherry cola, just so you can see in action how beautiful and frosty that polish gets when it's over, and how it really gives more of a snow cone effect as well. And there was 1, 2, and 3 coats of snow cone and 1 coat over cherry cola. And here are all the polishes together. What do you think? Which one is your favorite? I am personally proud of how S'mores and Snow Cone came out. I'm really happy with how those ended up looking. I really love this collection, even the yellow. I know yellow polishes tend to be a little finicky, and this one is no exception to that rule. But I do hope that if you do get Lemonade Crunchy Ice, that you do enjoy it, especially for what it's supposed to be representing. Let me know in the comments below which one was your favorite. I love to hear your feedback. Let me know if you plan on picking any of them up. That would mean the world to me, even if all you do is go to the Etsy shop and take a look. If you like these kind of videos, also hit that like button. Lets me know I'm doing a good job. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!